For the winter retreat, we're going to be doing the Four Truths and the Refuge Nundro. So I was thinking about the Refuge Nundro lately, how it's changed for me over time throughout the years. When I first took Refuge and started trying to develop that, it was very external to me, and trying to develop some kind of relationship with the holy beings. But lately, a couple things have happened that really showed me that my refuge is much different now than it used to be. And now it's much more of an internal process, and really about following the Buddhist path to transform myself. So it's more related in that way. So there are three causes for refuge: concern for lower rebirths, confidence in the qualities of the three jewels, and compassion for all sentient beings. So there were two very different situations lately that I experienced that really illustrated how my refuge has changed. The first was getting COVID. While in bed, I think maybe it was might have been the second or third day, I don't know. But one line from one of the verses in the 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas popped into my head, and that was, "Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body, let go of this life." And that kind of, it got my attention, certainly. I don't really think, I wasn't really thinking that I'm, going to die from this. But it's interesting that it popped into my mind. And so the full verse is, I'll read that. "Loved ones who have long kept company will part. Wealth created with difficulty will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of this life. This is the practice of bodhisattvas." So what was helpful for me when that popped into my mind was that it reminded me of what happens at death time, that this consciousness will leave. And where it goes has everything to do with what I've done, this consciousness has done, past lives and this life. And that's very helpful because it reminds me that taking refuge every day in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is what creates the conditions for what my rebirth will be. And that's helpful for my mind because then there's really no purpose in getting anxious about death or fearful, because if I don't think about what I'm doing up until death time, that's going to be quite a mess. But if I think about what I'm doing every day and stay on the path as best that I can, that is kind of the insurance policy for next rebirth. And so I don't really get so caught up in fear about death, because when I keep my mind in this, thinking in this way. And of course, when I can think about concern for lower rebirth, that is taking refuge in the path, in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then it keeps me in the direction that I want to go. That influences how I live, that influences how I die. So that was one thing. The second situation that recently connected me with refuge was the news of the war in the Middle East. And for this one, I think it's kind of using the second and third causes of refuge: confidence in the quality of the three jewels and compassion for all sentient beings. So when I first heard the news, my mind started to get angry and despondent about, here it is again. And I was able to turn my mind from that quite quickly, and bring into my mind Tonglen. And the reason, there's many reasons why that happened, but one of the main ones was the last 3 or 4 weeks in the Monday night meditation class, we've been going over Tonglen and how to do it. And so it was really fresh in my mind. It was helpful to think about Tonglen then, because then I can use a method that will help me when I'm confronted with something that I cannot solve. I have no control over it. But, of course, I want to do something. So, again, bringing my attention into a practice that has been taught and is so useful for developing love and compassion, and so useful for decreasing my own self-centeredness, is really the perfect remedy for a situation like this. And when it's done, then I feel like I am actually doing something, because I am. It affects me, and I believe it affects the world when we do these kinds of practices. Pulling my mind from the distressing news to starting to generate first equanimity, that's the first step for me to use before I can do Tonglen. I have to get my attitude in equanimous place. So thinking about that, just like me, all those that are involved with this conflict in the Middle East, they all want happiness, they all don't want to suffer, just like me. And so what they think that they're doing is going to be helpful to them is no different than what I think I'm doing that's going to be helpful to me and my happiness. So to get that level playing field is very helpful, because then I can open my heart to all of the people on all the sides of the conflict. And then I also remind myself that friend, enemy, and stranger is something that my mind creates. That's not something that is on others. So that reminds me that every person is very complex and has many, many causes and conditions for their circumstance and what they're doing. And that helps me remember a little bit about emptiness, and that things are not so solidly fixed like they appear to be, which also helps me get a broader perspective. We've been having wars and destruction like this since beginningless time. We're in samsara. So I hold it kind of that way. Why am I getting all whipped up about something that, has been going on and will continue to go on until, at least for me, until I get out of samsara and help other people get out of this mess. So again, that turns my mind to a bigger view, so I'm not so focused on the minutia of what's going on in these moments, this day, this time. And that's helpful. So it keeps a different perspective, keeps me looking at these kinds of things that happen through a dharmic lens, so that I can keep myself a little steady, so that I can continue my practice, because that's the most important thing, especially in this kind of circumstance. I can't do a lot. I can't change their minds. I can't get rid of their guns. I can't take their anger. I can do a lot with my imagination in Tonglen, however, and then I can decrease my own self-centeredness, and that's powerful. And so that's what I'll do. And so when we're distressed for whatever reason, if we can stay connected to our refuge, we can relate to the situation through these dharmic lenses, And then that always, without any doubt, always will be beneficial for ourselves and for others. And so let's commit to that practice so that we can increase our bodhicitta, increase our progress on the path, and become fully awakened.